Welcome back to Money Honeys. I'm Freddie.
I'm Chantel.
And I'm Dev.
So we've obviously been complaining about inflation, how much shit costs these days, the rise of subscription costs, you name it. It costs money, we're complaining.
Amen. And as prices rise, incomes aren't keeping up. They are not keeping up, and that's a problem. So, what is the solve? Today, we're talking about the influx of people not only getting second part-time jobs in addition to their full-time jobs, but second full-time jobs. That's 2 FTEs, if you know what I mean.
Wow. Yeah.
Wild. Okay, so Chantel and Dev, since you entered the workforce in your early 20s, like got your first full-time job, have you ever felt the need to have income outside of your full-time job, whether it was part-time or anything else?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say there have been maybe two phases of job era in my life where I didn't feel the need to have outside income, but aside from that, yeah. Extra income would have been much appreciated and welcomed.
I would say all of my 20s and all of my life. No, all of my working adult life, I have had multiple jobs. Because to a certain extent, well, first of all, I teach dance on the side. And I've been doing that since the end of college. And then I've always treated like brand partnerships and being a creator as a second hustle. I've always tried to have, and that's purely because of student loans and because, I want to help out my family, right? And like save money. I don't recommend always having a side hustle because I do definitely think that's one of the reasons why I'm pulling back from being a creator in the past year. Because like it came a point where I was just kind of like looking at my life and was like, I'm not present. I'm always thinking about, ooh, should I record this or like even outside of being a creator, when you have another job, it's hard to be present because you're thinking about divvying up your time between downtime and work or being social, just because you're always like your time is always money. Not to use that stupid adage, but that's how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I would say that, so when I was in New York in my early 20s in the Page program, that was a full-time gig. Like I was working 6 days a week, but it was hourly and it was only $12 an hour. So I really was living paycheck to paycheck and like having to pay for an apartment in New York City. Even with a roommate, it was paycheck to paycheck. And at that time, I actually didn't have room in my schedule for a second job. Like, I honestly don't know how I made it happen. I mean, this was back in 2013, so times were a little different, but even still, like, it was a stretch. It was absolutely a stretch. Once I got out of that program and started working, again, a contracted position that was full time, but we didn't have benefits. That also, I was working in news, which was a really hectic schedule. I got the worst hours because I was new. So I was doing like the 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, which I technically could have gotten a second job, but I was beat. I was beat after those like hours being up. And so, yeah, I never actually had a second income with those jobs, even though I needed to. I kind of just, I guess, chose to be more financially strapped and get a little bit more rest than the other way around. But I was actually able to pay my bills, so I was privileged in that way for sure. I just didn't have a lot of room for like leisure, leisurely fun in terms of stuff that costs money.
I saw a trend on TikTok where it's like people staying home to quote unquote enjoy their rent. And when you're that strapped, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You just spend time in your
really
home.
Interesting. That's a really interesting reframe.
Yeah, because I've been hearing that so much more too. Like even for like people who are renting or people who are homeowners, like I'm like, what are you doing this weekend? They're like, enjoying my mortgage.
That's right.
Enjoying my rent.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where we're at. That is where we're at. So I'm going to give y'all a little quiz about the current state of the workforce. In 2022, a survey conducted by Resume Builder reporting from a pool of 1,250 remote full-time workers, what percentage of these workers held two jobs, either two full-time jobs, or a full-time and a part-time? Is it A, 79%, B, 43%, C, 54%, or D, 84%?
Okay, so this is from 1,200 people. Just a random 1,200 people. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I would guess B, 43%.
I'm guessing A, 79%.
Okay. The answer is A, 79%.
Of course it is.
You know what it is? It's because my dad, I mean, I think my dad growing up has already, like, because he was a teacher. My dad, my entire life, was a teacher, a principal, and a basketball coach, or like an athletic director and a driver's ed instructor. Like, he's always had two jobs. And I think it's because my both parents have worked in education. So, and I know your parents both work in education too, so you understand it. But when your mom is a substitute teacher and your dad is just like a teacher, like, you got to have a second thing. You have to have more income, because we pay our teachers shit here in America. And I
Yeah.
know of so many people who are teachers nowadays who are also Uber drivers on the weekends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, even with like being a basketball coach or teaching an extracurricular, like those, that is a little bit of an extra paycheck for a lot of teachers, which is crazy because they already have to spend a lot of hours outside of the workday doing work, like grading papers and reading essays
Yep.
and all those things. So then another extracurricular on top of that just to make ends meet, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, the answer is 79%. So keep in mind, this was in 2022. According to US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the amount of full-time employees that have secondary, part-time, or full-time jobs is at almost 500,000 people. And this is record-breaking. This is record-breaking. If you take a look at the graph, the only other year that came close was July of the year 2000.
Yeah, this graph that Fred is showing us kind of it's really volatile. There's a lot of up and downs, but from the years 2015 to where we are now, it's just like a straight up climb. Still going up and down, but it's elevating from, let's see, 2015, the lowest it was at was maybe like 180. And then from there, it's elevating all the way up to like 450. That's insane. You know what it is? I bet it's because there's so many millennials who have student loan debt entering the workspace.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. I actually feel like in the next, like, probably 5 to 10 years, once like younger generations are really entering the workforce, the graph numbers are gonna go down because less people are going to college these days. If it doesn't make sense financially, a lot of like the younger generations aren't really entertaining the idea of 4-year universities.
Interesting.
I kind of want to get into the legality and how far you can actually push, like, having two jobs, right? Because I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of unemployment right now, and it feels like I'm like a dragon sitting on my little mountain of jobs, you know? Like, is it legal to have two full-time remote jobs?
I mean, yeah, I didn't even think of it in that way either, Dev. Like, there's so many people who are unemployed and looking for a job. So to like be collecting full-time jobs it does feel a little weird. But I mean, it's very necessary for a lot of people. But in short, yes, it is legal to have two full-time remote jobs as long as it doesn't conflict with any exclusivity clauses that's in your contract. So it gets tricky because some employers require that you disclose all other positions or jobs that you hold. And you can't be fired for that, but you can be fired or punished for any dishonesty around it. So I will say, ethical and legal are two different things, but they're equally as important. If the type of second job you're looking into feels like it could be a problem or conflict with your other job in any way, shape, or form, I would err on the side of caution and find something else.
I mean, it's interesting also because the ethical part for me, it comes into question, where it's like the person that is actually at fault is not a person, it's the system. It's like it's the state basically. And so are we going to punish I mean, punish is a very strong word. We're talking
Mm,
hypotheticals here, but it's like punishing or slapping the wrist of someone who has been able to get to full-time jobs for being greedy, or is it just in my opinion, it's like, well, if you kind of trace the problem back to the root, it's more so
mm,
about the state of things. It's about the state of inflation. It's about the cost of living, and how
Mm-hmm.
wages are not matching all of that, so
Yeah.
you can slap the person on the wrist who is getting a second full-time job as being greedy. However, in my opinion, we would be looking at the wrong culprit. And in fact, there are many culprits that are much bigger than us.
Amen.
I mean, you're right.
Amen.
I remember in 2021 and 2022, I was working at this startup, right? So, because I was working at a startup, I had a lot of like FaceTime with the CEO. And he told me a story of one time he was working at another startup because, these startup venture capitalist dudes are like constantly making new businesses and because they like hit it gold when they were young in the
Mm-hmm.
dot-com boom. I'm talking about a very specific type of dude who works in tech. Anywho, he was talking about how he worked at a startup and he had hired this person who was doing the work well, but then noticed like he would be really tired and have to like log off at like 3 all the time. The work was still getting done, but he just wasn't always available. And come to find out, he had taken a second full-time job to pay off his wedding. And what I thought was remarkable when he was telling me this was like one of those like easy breezy Silicon Valley dudes who's like has venture capital money up to his asshole and is like talking about, he's just always like, biometrically happy, like one of those kinds of dudes. And to see him get so angry about the idea that someone he hired isn't giving him 100% of their time or energy,
Yeah.
like I remembered that. And I remember wondering, like, well, is it legal or like who's in the wrong here? Like feeling conflicted about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've also, yeah, even like in kind of entering our 30s and knowing more people who have been getting married and having, traditional weddings that cost a pretty penny. Like, so many people have taken on second jobs and additional gigs to, lessen the weight of that financial burden. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
really very,
Mm-hmm.
very common.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
even last year I did at my previous job, and I never told them, but a friend booked me on this like side hustle for a branded directing gig, and I also was helping her produce, and then I edited the full thing. And
Mm,
so I basically had 2 full-time jobs for like 2 weeks, because
yeah.
like we also didn't tell the brand like, oh yeah, Chantel's working on this on the side. But
Yeah.
so, and I had to do the same like 24-hour or 48-hour
Yeah.
turnarounds that the brand was used to with
Oh,
with
wow.
with the edits.
Yep.
And of course it was a quick, tight turnaround. It's like from
Mm-hmm.
the time we were filming to the time that they wanted a first cut was like a week, maybe less than
Yeah.
that. And there was a hero video and then 3 cut downs from it. But yeah, so that was a tough 2 weeks because I was just working
Yeah.
like a lot.
Do you feel like it was worth it by the end of the 2 weeks?
Yeah. I needed that money.
Yeah.
And so, we're like, is it something that I could have sustained for a long amount of time? Like, no, I don't think so. But was it something, like the rate was really good. And so I was happy to do it for those 2 weeks for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I was burnt out. I was
Mm-hmm.
tired.
That's another thing to take a look at is like a lot of times when people are taking on, really, yeah, second full time opportunities, it is temporary. Like they're going into it with like a specific goal in mind, or it is
Mm-hmm.
like there's a certain number that they're trying to hit in their savings account to pay for something or just to like feel more comfortable. And I think that does ease the mind a little bit, even though this is going to be a really treacherous exhausting, draining period of time. Like it's not forever. But
Right.
I do know some people who just do it in perpetuity, and that's something that I will get into because I think that's also like really a wild thought.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Like I can see doing like I taught dance, right? And so that's like 2 hours or 2 to 6 hours every week, but on scheduled times. So you just like
Mhm.
wake up on a Tuesday and you think, okay, today's going to be a long day, but then it's Wednesday and
Right.
Thursday and you're fine. That's different than like having what Chantel was describing with like client expectations and deadlines due all the time. That's wild to me that people are able to balance that kind of lifestyle in perpetuity.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me, it's like, I think that it would depend on the type of job where it's like,
Mhm.
where
True.
things wound up settling for my last job. If I really wanted to, I probably could have swung to full-time jobs. I would have been very busy during the day, but I probably could have, but only if the second full-time job
Yeah.
was at the same level of like urgency as the first
Mhm.
one, or like if I had if I had two that were very chaotic, then like no, I
Mhm.
couldn't do it. Or if I had two that were both very full days each, I couldn't do it. If I had two that were maybe like 5-ish hours each a day, then yeah, I could swing that.
Yeah.
So does this like situation with potentially having two full-time jobs or more? Hell, there may be some people out there who are like geniuses who have like four full-time jobs. Does this like get tricky with taxes at all?
Honestly, y'all know Uncle Sam, the IRS, he don't care how many jobs you got as long as you are claiming it.
Mm,
So you just have to make sure you claim, if you have two full-time jobs, claim both W-2s. If you have two full-time jobs and then freelance on the side, plus the 1099s, like just make sure you're claiming it and you're actually good. The influx of people looking for secondary full-time remote jobs has actually gotten so popular that there's a site that helps people looking for opportunities like this called overemployed.com. And it's a community of professionals looking to work two remote jobs, earn extra income, and achieve financial freedom. This is like their little log line. They define themselves as a counterculture movement in achieving the American dream.
How is
I'm
this
not mad about it.
counterculture? Wait, but how is it
yeah, I'm
counterculture?
like, this is leaning all the way into the cold. Pull yourself up
Well,
by your
yeah, it
bootstraps.
is. It actually
Yeah,
is. It is. But I guess they more so mean like it is like under the table.
yeah,
It's
Yeah,
it's
okay.
not
Yeah.
it's more so like it's funny because the way that they describe it and the way they present themselves, it's like, ooh, a secret club, you know?
Ooh, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like we did
yeah.
a
That's the
little
thing. Where
naughty.
exactly, like in my when I did have that gig, I'm like, I wasn't telling, like, no one at my full time job knew. No
Right.
one.
Mm-mm.
I didn't tell a soul.
You're literally laughing on your way to the bank. Like that's what you're
Yeah.
doing. That's the energy that they are giving. Wow.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry if the economy, if the systems were not built the way they were, if like wages were keeping up with inflation, like maybe we wouldn't have to do this. But like, I don't know.
Mhm.
We got to figure it out some way, shape, or form.
mm-hmm.
So I wanted to explore this phenomenon because I've learned that more and more people in my circles are taking on second full-time remote jobs. And I never fathomed this as a possibility because jobs be demanding. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, yeah, like a lot of times, you know, I barely have the mental bandwidth for like a project at a time, let alone like two full-time jobs where you have to like have meetings and like answer to people and like do all of these things. Like I'm just like, it really blows my mind the more and more people that I find out who are sort of taking this route just to like have some sort of financial freedom. So
Without revealing too much about your friends, can you describe like what kind of full-time jobs people in your circles are taking? And like maybe you can mix and match so you're not like again revealing too much about these friends because it's like it feels like a subculture.
yeah, I mean, so one of the friends, he's a graphic designer. So
Okay.
he does like art direction and things like that for, 2 different companies, and it's
Good for
both full
him.
time, and he is exhausted. I actually spoke with him, and he was saying that he took on the second job to expand his network while working from home and to also boost his income. He said it will allow me to enjoy some financial freedom for a while. It's not a sustainable setup in the long run, but for now, I'm trading one type of stress for another. I no longer worry about money, but I see my friends less and I'm constantly tired. However, the financial buffer gives me the opportunity to invest in my own projects and plan my next move towards achieving both income and free time I desire. So he's looking at it, super long term, but he knows, he literally said it's not sustainable, because it's taxing for sure.
Yeah.
Another friend, so I have another friend, she has a full-time job, but then she also freelances on the side. Also a graphic designer. I'm sensing a pattern here. I'm actually only realizing it now that I'm saying it out loud.
You know what? In the last job I was at, we had 2 freelance graphic designers, and they were freelance because they had other full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the grind is real.
Yeah.
She said she needs security, but she does find herself feeling spread thin between her full-time job, auditions. She's also an actress, and also freelance work. And she wants to live a full life, which means she needs to have a decent amount of money in her pocket. So this is the case for a lot of people. With the amount of inflation and the wages not keeping up with the constant rise in cost of living, it's becoming harder and harder for people to have financial freedom and be able to take that vacation or go to that concert. I just feel like paycheck to paycheck is becoming the unfortunate norm for people. Like, I don't know a lot of people who have one full-time job who feel like they can like do things at the drop of a dime or take a spontaneous trip. Like, I don't know. Do y'all? Because I don't.
I mean, even my friends with a full-time job, like Patrick works very squarely one job and he barely has any time. Like he and like don't get me wrong, it's a really good job, but there were weeks this summer, I would say like for 8 weeks this summer, he worked from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night, every day, and every day, which is just insane because like these days with the mixture of remote work and in his office, he has to go into the office all the time. And
Oh,
because he's producing shows,
right.
and there's always that crunch time when you're producing shows, the amount of meetings that just get thrown on your calendar that are quote unquote just a call, just a call,
Oh,
just a phone call. He's always on.
yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I would love to get back to the place where one full-time job was enough to be able to pay bills and enjoy life. And I'm not even saying like the luxuries, right? I'm just saying like simple things, eating out, whatever your vice is, going to a concert and not having to like save. I literally put on stories the other day. I'm like, how do y'all have concert money all the time? Those Kendrick Lamar tickets dropped, and the amount
Uh,
of like screenshots of the receipt, like not the receipts, but like the screenshots of the tickets that people were posting that they had like bought tickets. I mean, he's Beyonce prices.
uh,
I think for like section 300, it's like $700.
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa.
And I got a few responses. Like, people were also like, I mean, actually, that story got a lot of engagement because people also had the same questions. But then also, some people like came with answers. They were like, well, a lot of people were saying credit cards. And then a lot of
Mhm.
people were saying Klarna, which like isn't a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Klarna. Klarna is also a funny word that I love.
It is. Sponsor us.
Klarna
Klarna.
used to be something like we used to laugh about, but now more and more Klarna's for the girlies. Like Klarna's here for us, you
Mhm.
know?
Klarna.
I bought a pair of expensive jeans the other week, and it was my first time putting it on Klarna. And I was like, okay, this is making sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like for me it's very much, well, I mean, I also am just like someone who enjoys saving, and so for me it's like if I'm looking at the price of something, I'm kind of weighing it against of like, would I rather see that in an item that I'm purchasing, or would I rather see those numbers in my bank account and like which one is making me happier? Or if it's an experience, you know, then which experience is making me happier? And so like for me, the one thing that I will always make room in my budget for is concert tickets, but it's because I don't buy a ton of items throughout the year.
Yeah, and you budget for
Black
it.
Friday. Yeah. Black Friday is another story. I buy all because the thing I buy like all my hair care, all my beauty products, and that's when I like actually buy clothes and stuff. Like my hair care, 50% off Black Friday.
I don't like, as long as I've known you, Shanti, I don't know if I knew you were such a Black Friday girly.
Well, it's crept. It's crept up. And then this year was really, I gave it to God. I said, you know what? If you're giving me these sales,
yeah.
when you find the deal. I was like, hair care 50% off for the hair shit that I use. I was like, absolutely. I'm buying 2 liters of each product. That's what I did. I bought 2 liters of each product because the liters were 50% off.
Wow.
70 ounces each. About 140 ounces of shampoo in my closet right now.
She has her own little Costco.
I do. I have my back stock.
Babe, I could die before you get through that shampoo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to take me like the full calendar year, but
until the next Black Friday.
Until the next Black Friday.
Wow.
Exactly. Same with my my toners, my little exfoliators, all that stuff, because I do like using, I mean, y'all know my skin is really sensitive and stuff, and so I do need to use like pretty high-end stuff, and I've tried to swap for stuff that's more reasonably priced, and my skin just like doesn't do it. And so I've found my brands that I enjoy using, and so I buy them on Black Friday when they're between 30 and 50% off.
I mean, the discipline.
I'm like,
to not try something that you might see on Amazon because you already have it. The discipline.
So to reel us back in, aside from exclusivity clauses, what should people who are considering taking this route look out for?
So yes, exclusivity clause is very, very important. But aside from that, it's really important to, 1, be realistic, and 2, be clear about your professional goals. Yeah, it's a huge undertaking working 2 full-time jobs. So make sure you're prepared for the amount of time it will suck out of you. So that's really what I mean by being realistic. Many people will have a main job, which is their, more in line with their career, their full-time job that they, have developed skills over the years to attain and all that stuff. And they want to overachieve in this job and grow professionally. If you get a second full-time job, or people who have these, career-focused main jobs, the second job is just that. It's secondary, and you'll likely have to settle for being an average employee because it's not wise or sustainable to put 110% into both. That's why it's best to find something that's outside of your main field so that you stay in good graces with the decision makers in that industry. So like, if, at your second job, like maybe you miss a meeting, or, obviously to maintain that job, you have to, make the meetings, be a decent employee. But like, I really do feel like you just got to be decent to keep the job.
What about your friends who are both graphic designers?
They are really good at both. That's why he's exhausted and doesn't see anyone. I haven't seen him in weeks.
Oh, no. Yeah, but that's real. And honestly, that is such a good point that you bring up, because I don't know, like something that I've been discovering about myself. So I started a new job a month ago. I love it. It's going great. However, something that is really made itself apparent to me is that I am you're probably all going to be like, duh, but like I am a perfectionist when it comes to like executing these creative tasks. And I mean, part of it is my job to be a perfectionist. I'm a creative director, but like I actually don't think that I could rationalize. I don't think I could be okay with having average be my goal. you know, like if I make a mistake or blunder, that takes a toll on me.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's valid, and
Yeah.
that's why you kind of have to like know yourself, right? It's like
Yeah.
if I take on this second opportunity, I have to be okay with being a C student. And I agree,
Yeah.
Chantel. Like that feels like, ooh, it's like a little bit of a gut punch. Like,
It is.
ugh.
It is. It is. That's why for those 2 weeks I was working actually 16 hours a day.
Yeah. Circling back to like, so I actually have another friend. She's the first one that I ever knew who had two full-time jobs in this like
Okay.
remote working era.
Uh-huh.
And she works like in, like, she's a former nurse. Like, she used to work like in the hospital, like bedside, all that stuff. And then since then, she shifted and she does like, honestly, guys, I don't really know what it is, but it's like, it's almost like it's like a health insurance, like data entry type vibe. But that's become her main job. And then she has a
Uh-huh.
second full time job that's similar to it, but she's not emotionally connected. Like,
Mm.
this is her clocking in, doing the work and clocking out for both jobs. So she's had two jobs just in perpetuity since I've known her. Like, it is her norm because she's not emotionally connected to these roles. I'm like, wow, that does take, it takes a certain type of mindset to take that on, because she's, doing well, like financially. She's able to like go on trips, and like she has a really lovely apartment that's like a loft, and it has like a separate ADU, and it has like all these things. And it's because she has these two jobs, but like she just literally clocks in and clocks out. And she has like come to the realization, and like also as her friend, like she does not get, she finds fulfillment in so many other areas, and her career is just not, that's not the spot. That's not the spot for fulfillment for her. And she's like okay with that. And I'm like, I love that for her,
Me
like I
too.
Yeah.
love that that's something that she is like found peace with.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
honestly
we
very
live in
respectable and commendable.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we live in Los Angeles where like everyone and their mother is a creative and is in the industry or is here for a reason. Whether even if they're like, working catering on sets or something, they still are like, I'm here, I'm adjacent to the industry, I love it. But that's the minority, I feel like, in America. Most people are like, this is my job, and then this is my
Mm-hmm.
family, or this is my social
Mm-hmm.
life, or this is my hobby, which might be a better way to live, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, she seems not stressed, even though she has two full-time jobs.
I
It's
love that.
interesting, the disconnect from, the
Yeah.
disconnect of how, kind of freeing that piece of your mind of like having to really like prove yourself in your career, and how
Yeah.
she's able to redirect that energy elsewhere. I think it's kind of cool.
Does a
Yeah.
job like that have a lot of meetings throughout the day? Because that's the thing with the full-time job that I have now and the ones that I've had in the past have all been really,
Mm,
really meeting heavy.
yeah, and that's where it gets tricky. No, she has like maybe a couple check-in meetings a week.
Yeah. So okay. That makes
Mhm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I'm in like multiple hours of meetings a day that get like thrown on my calendar. Yeah.
Are your meetings usually 30 minutes or an hour, or
Depends.
are they're scheduled for 30 minutes and then they go for an hour?
it it depends. At this company, people are actually pretty good at if it's a 30-minute meeting, you're out in 30 minutes or you're out in like 27 minutes. Um
Mm.
Mhm.
I'll give
yeah.
you your 3 minutes back.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, where
Yeah.
like the people at this job are quite efficient. I mean, they're all just really good at what they do, but they're quite efficient, but there just are a lot of discussions and they like have to happen, you know.
Mhm.
Um like there've only been there really haven't been any meetings that I'm in where I'm like, I don't really need to be here. I'm like, no, it's really good that I'm here.
Yeah.
Like it's really good
Like,
that I'm like, okay,
yeah.
keeping
Like,
abreast of all this stuff.
actually, this is a meeting that probably couldn't have been an email.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So I personally, I mean, I haven't worked a full-time job in a while. But trust me, I've been applying. I am looking for one for anyone who is listening to
Mhm.
this podcast and has any leads. But I personally can't see myself committing to 2 full-time jobs right now, or even like in the near future. I've been out of the workforce in that way for so long that I really would want to like focus on one job and then still keep my other creative endeavors outside of it to make extra money, like DJing and like, event producing and things that I can, sort of manage on a project basis. But like, maybe one day, I don't know. But I know that for me personally, I don't know if my brain
See,
can
I'm
do
gonna
it.
push back a little bit. I'm gonna push back a little bit on that because like
Mm,
DJing and being but DJing and doing like brand alignment or like work that you do or design work that you do or anything that you do for your community is like another full-time job. And like I think we sometimes as creatives in Los Angeles downplay a lot of the entrepreneurship that goes into like advertising yourself or even just like setting up payroll for yourself and your own side business or
you're
even just
right.
like networking. That is another job. It's a soft job. It's a soft skill, especially when we're working with our friends, but it
Mm-hmm.
is labor. Like there is
Yeah,
effort being put forth. So like
you're right.
you may say,
You're right.
yeah, you're still working. I mean, especially with DJing, Fred, I feel like you're like always hustling on that end, you know?
Absolutely. Even
Yeah.
even even doing this podcast,
Oh yeah, the podcast.
where
So
Hello.
true.
it's like this is also like a side hustle
It
that we
is.
all do, and we're out here
Yeah.
being like, no, we just have one job. Like we literally are talking into
Yeah.
the microphone of our
Yeah.
second, more of a side hustle type of
It is
situation.
Friday night at 8:40 at night, and
Yeah.
we were talking to each other. We were recording a podcast right now.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
really
Yeah.
is. It really is. So, Devin, Chantel, how are we feeling about this new phenomenon? Do we feel richer after this episode?
You know, honestly, it's not like I feel inspired by the people who are doing this to make ends meet, but I feel mad that they should have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Same.
Yeah.
Like, why are we here? How did we get here?
Exactly. I'm absolutely echoing that sentiment. And because, again, people in different, since the beginning of the time, people have had multiple jobs and all of that. But it's just, I'm mad at the system then, and I'm mad at the system now because everyone should be able to work a singular job for a livable wage.
Yeah, honestly. So I just want to reiterate this episode is merely for visibility for our audience. Like, the economy
Mhm.
sucks and inflation is real. Work the system however you can. Just make sure that you're ethical about it and make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, that's really what matters. If you don't have your health, then you don't have anything, no matter how much money you have. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to end on that note.
Listen,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
there's going to be an Auntie Devin addendum. Like you could be a little unethical. You can be a little unethical just as long as no one gets hurt. As no one gets hurt and you're stealing
Yeah.
from billionaires. I mean, it's the 6th of December as we're recording this, and the United Healthcare CEO assassin is still at large and still very hot. So, like, go off. Have you been seeing
I
that?
I have seen that.
He's
I
very
don't
hot.
know. I can't respond to you though. I have no idea
Yeah.
what to.
Is hot and proactive. I might cut this part out based off of future
Yeah.
events, but
That and proactive is actually insane. Um, so thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Buddy Honeys. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.